Hello, everyone. I'm delighted today to introduce you to an old friend of mine. We've known each other casually for probably 20 years or so. And recently, in my conversations with Tara, she's been telling me that she's been living in joy and just expressing what a beautiful space she's been in. And I'm just so fascinated by what Tara has to tell us. And I think we'll begin just before I hit record. Tara was sharing some journaling she did this morning with her soul about our conversation today. And I think it would be cool for you to share that with us, Tara, to get us going.
Okay, my pleasure. And thank you for bringing me here on this podcast. This is a first for me, but yeah, the more I can spread the joy, and this is one venue to do that, the more, I'm living my truth. So, okay, so here is my question that I asked my soul this morning. And I said, do you have anything to share with me about today's podcast interview with Sheila Kelly? And my soul says to me, stay centered and speak from the heart. You only know how to be authentic, so speak from that place. You are showing up and moving. Actually, you are in your next transformation phase. The vibe of joy will carry you and match you to the experiences for your greatest and highest good and the highest good of all. You are free and so free to speak freely. You are now uncensored, uninhibited, unprogrammed. You are the program of your soul now. Tune in regularly and feel for your next steps, shifts, and insights. You are a way shower, showing others and vibing for others what this frequency can do and feel like. Shine with an open heart. Love your soul.
Thank you. So I too join with your soul in giving you space, Tara, to be uncensored, unprogrammed, and unfiltered. Whoa. Let's go.
Oh boy.
Let Tara loose. So that was beautiful. And what I know enough about your story to know that many people who might be experiencing joy as you are could not imagine what you've been through in the last few years. And to understand that, another unword, to understand what you've been through and how you got here is pretty inspiring. And I'd like you to start sharing some of that story with us.
Yeah, did all the things that society had said to do. I, got married, went to university, got married, had children, bought the house with the 2 acres of land, worked the job, did all of those things. And then when I was 35, I took my third child to be baptized to the United Church. And I thought, I can't. And I had no plans on going to church. There's no spiritual bone in my body that I knew of at that point. So I was kind of dormant for the first 35 years of my life. And then I went to baptize my third child, and I thought, okay, I can't go into this church again and say that I'm not going to raise my children in the church or this child in the church. And so I said, okay, I'm going to make a deal with myself. I will go to church for 6 months. And then I felt that I could go and baptize a third child, and I did that. So I went, and that's when my spirituality and my joy and my connection to life and discovered who I am, that journey began with that church community and with the education of science and faith and all the offerings that they had. I just threw myself in. The Bible, you name it, I was in. And it just felt so good to walk through those doors of the church because I could show up as myself. And I started to discover who I was not just the mother, the employee, the wife, you know, the daughter. I was finding out who I was without those roles. So that's how the whole thing began. So then fast forward to about 4 years ago, all of that crashed. It all crashed. So I got my marriage was crumbling. We were just moving apart for too long, and I got diagnosed. Just as COVID hit, I got diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia. So I got AML, and I got whisked away to an alien experience. And, you know, I'm sure people can relate to what that diagnosis feels like. And I was in the hospital for 2 months, and that's when my faith flourished. That's when my faith deepened. So that's when I realized I had to hand this over to something greater, because this was just too much to do. You know, to think myself through. And then my faith community was around me, my friends, my family, and then when I came up from that experience and I lived, because that was a bonus. That's when
was there doubt that you would be able to survive? I think there's always doubt, but were you told that you might not?
I was given a 30% chance.
That's pretty low.
And 2 people who were diagnosed synchronistically from my church too. All 3 of us at my church got diagnosed within the year. I was in the middle, and both of them did not survive, because it is not the one you want to get. So, but I had a lovely friend who channeled during that time, and I felt drawn to. I didn't want her to say to me, "You're going to die," and she assured me that she would not do that. You know, if that was my soul's destiny to not make it through this, she said she would. But she, on the other hand, she did say, but I do know you're going to live. So I can tell you that. She goes, this, and she said to me, which was like, she said to me, because we always want to know why. Why did I get AML? Why am I going through this? And she told me it was for humanity. I was doing a service for humanity, because humanity was shifting and transforming. And there's ethereal workers, people who work with the higher realms, and then there's I guess I call myself a light worker, or people who work on the ground. And that's the harder job, the ones that are transforming and alchemizing all of this old energy and old paradigms. So I was there shifting myself a lot through this journey of cancer, and letting go of things and transforming and just becoming another phase of who I am. But my understanding was, as I was processing all of those paradigms and beliefs and all of those things that no longer were serving me or humanity, I was doing it for everybody, not just me. So that was a bit of a thing to get my head wrapped around, because I'm like, man, this is hard. But
this is big. This is big.
This is big. It's not just me, but yet in the moment it was just me, because I just needed to do everything I could to get through it. And I did.
You did indeed. And along the way, something happened with your marriage.
Yes. So when I came up from my last round of chemo, I basically was just living in pure bliss. I mean, I wouldn't even call it joy. I'd call it bliss. And I spent about 1.5 years of just like, I was reborn. Everything was a first experience again, like getting in the car and driving myself somewhere, seeing a tree, experiencing my family, all my friends. It was almost like I just met everybody, and I was just so excited to be there for the first time, and to have these people and these experiences and nature. And I mean, it was everything. So I was just living in joy. And then once I was recovered enough, then my husband at the time thought he was now going to take our relationship to the next level, which is like, he just dropped it one night and said, I don't love you anymore. And then that was the snowball effect. And that's when I had to now deal with this piece of my relationship with my husband at the time, that it was crumbling before I got diagnosed. So that almost like that got put on pause. And he got put on pause as I went through my journey and my cancer journey and my recovery. But once he realized that we were now going to be entering a new chapter together, but we were just on totally different planes, and we could not relate at all anymore because I was someone totally different, but yet he was still trying to pigeonhole me into the person who I was before I went into all of that. So the disconnect and we did not vibe at all. So that was hard. That was grieving. First, I had to grieve the loss of who I was when I got diagnosed. And then I had to grieve the loss of what I thought a family unit would look like for the rest of my life. Because I'm from a very, very strong family unit. My mom and my dad and two siblings and myself, my brother and sister, were extremely close. And I thought that's what I was going to have. So that was hard. And that's another whole journey of being guided. So at that point, all my guys were on board. I was when the bomb hit and I knew my whole world was crumbling again. I said to people, it felt like in the movies when you're running and the earth behind you is crumbling. And I felt like I was running. And meanwhile, I'm not going back because that earth is falling into the abyss. And I needed to go as fast as I could to get to the other side because it was just destruction. So, and I had shared this with you, when I realized and accepted that this was the new reality, that reality that I had dreamed and thought of, or thought that ship sailed. I now have a new reality that I'm moving into, and I need to accept it and I need to execute. So I remember feeling guided to everything I needed to do in the next 6 to 9 months to make that happen. And I remember sitting there going, wow, that's a whole lot of stuff to do. So I canceled. I didn't go anywhere with my friends. I didn't do anything. I shut down all outside worldly things, and I just focused on the Running Man, the earth down, going down, and just to get myself to the other side. And I made it. Yeah.
You did indeed make it. And the three words that stand out for me, Tara, are bliss, joy, and grief.
Grief.
And were they coexisting, or were you in one for a bit and then you'd be in another for a bit and then you'd be in another for a bit? Because, wow, what a journey. What a journey with, your old life, basically Armageddon.
Oh, yeah.
Old life is Armageddon and I'm moving forward, and wow. So tell us how that all how that all came together.
Yeah, I think it wasn't like I was not happy, but I think the joy kind of got put on pause, like the living in joy, because obviously there was a lot of work to selling a house, getting my last child up to university or college, and dealing with all of like everything that a divorce has, like separation agreements, trying to do marriage counseling. It was just complete opposite of the bliss I had just been and the joy I had been living for about 1.5 years when I lived. Yeah, it was hard. And the bliss and the joy got put on hold. So I couldn't really grieve the loss of that because I guess I didn't think it was. The part of me knew that wasn't lost. That was just put on hold because I was going to get through this next phase, and it's okay. And I will. And of course, there were so many parts of me that were triggered, and patterns and dysfunction, and it was just a whole lot of drama. And I did it. I got through it with my guides. I had to find a place to live with 1% vacancy right here in Bedford. And I said to my ex at the time, because at this point, I can talk about my guides all I want now, because he wasn't spiritual at all. And I said, you know what? I'm going to find a place to live because I've asked for it, and I have agreed to follow any breadcrumbs that are put on my path. And I knew beyond a doubt that I was going to find exactly what I would need it in Bedford. Again, another just clear cognizant, just knew that no need to worry. I'm living. And he's like, oh, you might have to move to Dartmouth. I'm like, no, actually, I'm going to be living in Bedford because I know I am. So that was kind of interesting. So I've been living here for over 2 years now, and every night when I go to bed, I express gratitude for this place.
Yes, we talked a little bit about gratitude before we hit record, and how we need to be grateful for everything.
Yeah.
Whether we want to label it good or bad, because most people listening to your story about your marriage breaking down would say, well, how could anybody be grateful for that? And it's not that you're grateful for that the marriage is breaking down. What are you grateful for in those circumstances?
I'm grateful that I was able to get through 2 very difficult situations, and a third, actually. My oldest son, he decided to not be in relationship with me anymore either after we divorced. So I had to grieve the loss of my oldest son. I have 2 other children, so still have a son and a daughter who I connect with. And so I lost my son, I lost my husband of, my partner of 30 some years, and I lost my home. I lost my innocence of, realizing that death is a real thing. And so I had to grieve all of those things. And, but yet those were things that shaped me into understanding and accepting those things. I think acceptance was critical. So I had to, it took me a long time to accept my son, not speaking with me, because that's hard as a child. I mean, I accepted the marriage. That did take me a while as well. When I first got diagnosed, I was in shock for, I don't know, a while until I could finally accept that. But once you can accept it and not judge it, then you can start you can start learning to see the gifts, as as a friend of mine used to say, the gifts of the hit. And that relationship I was in with my husband, for example, at the time, he, that wasn't going to allow me to move into my next level of transformation, or that wasn't going to allow me to be free. There was too much dysfunction between the 2 of us, so that wasn't going to work. Being in my home, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm losing my house, but now I'm here and I'm like, this is so much better. Like, you don't realize what is beyond these gifts that come in, these horrible forms. You don't realize that these are actually helping you move to another phase where these things that are going to come onto your path are much more in alignment with your soul's journey, and much more in alignment with bringing you joy, and allowing you to be an expression of who you are, that you need to be. Because if not, then that causes dis-ease, it causes anxiety, it causes stress. And we know how all of, those things over time, and that's what happened to me. I had a lot of stress and anxiety over a long period of time where I was disconnected with who I was. And I was basically, I don't want to say living a lie. I mean, I don't regret anything to this moment. I was, if anything, I have compassion for the woman who lived all those phases up until this point. Because if I hadn't lived all those phases and gone through the cancer journey, gone through the divorce, gone through, all of those other difficulties in life, I wouldn't be here. I am accepting it all and being more cognizant of each moment that we have. and how important it is, and how there's no guarantee that tomorrow is going to come. So I think if we can just accept all of it, then we have a better chance of being in that higher vibration of joy.
Oh, that higher vibration of joy, which is different from bliss. So, I don't want to get too technical here, but I have no idea what the difference is between bliss and joy. Can you put it into words or?
I used it, and I got to think about that. I think maybe bliss is more like just completely, euphoric, like just completely unscathed by anything that's going on. You're just in bliss. It's almost like you're just on a whole other different plane, and and nothing can touch you. So I don't think I'm living in bliss now, but I'm definitely living in joy. So things still touch me. Things still, it's a journey. And when things touch me, when, again, if I judge it as negative,
right.
I don't judge it as negative, but when maybe uncomfortable things, and things I have to deal with, like I have aging parents, like I'm not living the dream life. I mean, I believe I am living the dream life. But
you're living your dream life. Yes.
I'm living my dream life. I'm living the dream life, I feel right now. But I'm also dealing with life because, things happen. It's all of it happens. But I think when you're living from that vibration of joy, it's going to hit, but it's going to kind of go through, or it's going to bounce off. It's going to hit you, but I think the key is that it hits you, but it doesn't stay very long.
Doesn't stick.
It doesn't stick. Yeah.
Got me thinking here. Is it a feeling? And if it's a feeling, do you feel it in your body? Is that
the joy?
Yeah, the joy.
Yeah, I feel it in my body. I feel it in my mind, body, and spirit. Like I find it's just this vibrational shift that when you're in, and sometimes it's so vibing, like I'm just so vibing that it's hard for me to go to bed because I just want to soak up one more second of life. Like I just want to soak up one more thing before I go to bed, because life is just so much more visceral and so much more exciting when you have that higher vibration of joy. So, who doesn't want to take all the joy in? So I found the last few months, as I kind of hit this state of joy, and it's not 100%. Like I'm not gonna say that I'm 100% in joy all the time, but in general, I am living from a state of joy. That's kind of my default that I go back to if I kind of get swung a certain way. And the vibration is it's so magnetic. Like you want to sit there, and I think at first I was living really high, like to the point where I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep well. The high vibe was just a hard place to stay in. So I feel like over the last few months, I've been able to come off my vibe a little bit and settle into another transformational level, because you just can't. Like it's a feeling, and it's just an energy. Like it's an energy that's it's like zzz into a socket, and you're like, and you can't live at that level because it's exhausting.
I get that. I've had moments of joy.
Yeah.
And I always call my joy is inner peace, which is not at all like what you're describing. It's very interesting. And that's why I'm so fascinated by your experience. And, I almost have this sense, Tara, that, and I could be wrong, but it's like you have, as you know David McGinley, and I talked my last interview, and he had a near-death experience, and it's almost like you had a near-death experience in a different way. You
Mm-hmm.
know, he went and met a presence and saw a tree and a meadow and that kind of thing. But it's to me they're very, very similar. What do you think?
Hmm. Well, in a way, yeah, because when I was in the hospital and synchronistically, David McGinley's office was just down the hall on the 8th floor. So he actually came in to see me during my time in the hospital going through treatment. And yeah, he said to me, "Did you ask yourself why me?" And I said, "No, never got there. Why not me? I'm a human being having a human experience. So I'm open to all things can affect me." And I think, and again, when you accept it all, that's part of, you have to accept the journey. And and I so I had the biggest thing was the grieving of who I was.
Mm.
So I had to grieve in a way, the death of me, because the new person that was going to be coming out the other end was not the person who went in.
Yeah, so it you know, that's the kind of shift that I think anybody that I've talked to since I've started this podcast has had some kind of shift that
Mm,
changed the trajectory of their lives. And yet everyone has a different story to tell
mm.
around, sometimes it's just a new thought that changes their whole way of thinking, their whole way of being in the world. So I love the way you've said that you grieve the death of the person that you used to be, because I think it's important to understand that that person was also a gift. As you
Mm.
articulated that person was necessary to get you to where you are, this joyful, almost to the point of exhaustion person. And
Yeah,
you
sometimes.
yeah, I know you talked about your soul earlier, and we won't that means so many different things to so many different people. But I I'm curious about this idea that you're doing it for humanity and you're following the breadcrumbs. And do you have any idea where they're going? Where those breadcrumbs are going to take you?
No, um, no, and this is where I think the the lesson of the diagnosis of cancer and being and going through that abduction, I think one of the lessons I learned is how to hand it over and have such deep faith and trust in the unfolding of my life, and knowing that whatever happens, it's all good, whether I'm here or not. It's trusting it all. And that has served me when I went through the divorce and all the other, things that I had to go through. Um, I just had trust and faith that on the other side of it, I would be in a better place of where I am meant to be on this soul's journey. A better transformation of, I would bring me to a point in my soul's journey that I needed to be there. Like, trust that this divorce, my oldest not speaking with me, all of it, the cancer journey, all of it is setting me up to be where I need to be. Or I had, someone used to say to me, we used to make these soul contracts. So before we incarnate into our human form, our soul has these contracts that you're going to experience these certain things in this incarnation that are going to move the marker for your soul's evolution. And I had someone read my astrology chart, and I have something happen in one of my houses, and she's like, "Oh, she's like, that means you got some big lessons this time." And so I sent her a note back saying, "Well, here's the ones I just went through." And she's like, "Yeah, that would be right." So she didn't even know about what I'd been through. And she just told me that there was going to be some big lessons that my soul decided that in this incarnation, we're going to get it this time because we didn't get it before. So I think, and I've found in my life, I find the human experience fascinating, but I find in my life when something happens to me, it it is one absolutely truthful. I can't, beyond the reason of a doubt, I know exactly what happened, why it happened, and it needed to happen. Like it's like, you're not getting it. So guess what? The next phase. And guess what? This experience is going to be so visceral and so adamant that you cannot question what the lesson is from it. So I've had some of those experiences in my life where I just have these things that are like, okay, you doubted it? Well, here you go. You can't unknow now what you now know.
You can't unknow what you know now. There's an epitaph for you. I can't unknow it. As you know, I wrote a book, The Power of Un. So I love that you're using these un words in our conversation.
Funny.
That's probably not an accident either.
No, our meeting was no accident.
No, there are no accidents.
No.
And I see you, Tara, as a very powerful teacher because of your ability to communicate what you've been through so clearly and so beautifully.
Thank you.
I wonder if you had to come up with any kind of advice for people, for example, somebody who's going through cancer, somebody who's going through divorce, and they don't have this understanding. There's that word again. They don't have this understanding. What do you think you could say to them? Is there anything you could say to them?
I always thought to myself, I don't know how I would have gotten through my cancer journey without, and then my subsequent divorce, if I didn't have faith. Like this belief in something greater than who you are, that is what's kind of like I coasted on, and I kind of that surrender to something a bit bigger than you. And I always have felt like my guides are there supporting me. So, I had such beautiful support on the outside. My church community, my friends have been fantastic. My family. I mean, I am so grateful for all of the people and the communities that I intersperse in my life. But no one can help you when you are going through something like a divorce or cancer. Like, they can help you, but at the end of the day, you're the one going through it. So you need to instead of going outward for something, and everyone tries to do that, things are happening around you trying to support you, but the actual is that you have to go inward. You have to go inward for that connection to that something greater, that soul, that infinite wisdom within you, that your own teacher within. Like, you need to go in and connect with that, and that will give you the faith, because you have to trust in yourself that you can do it. Like, you can't. Yeah, you have to go in. So for people that are going through those difficult situations, have compassion for yourself, because it's hard. Because someone's like, oh, when people say, oh, you got this, or it's like, well, you know what? Maybe you don't have it right now, and that's okay. When I was going through, after I went through that mission 101 to get my life that was crumbling behind me, and I mentioned to you, I stood in my apartment when I pretty much had ticked all the boxes and done 6 months of night and day work to get to where I was, and I stood there, and all of a sudden, it's almost like I woke up, and I was like, where am I? How did I get here? And then I crashed. I crashed for about 3 weeks. Didn't eat, didn't sleep. It was like everything came crashing. And then even after that, like, I distracted myself. I was sad. I was just going over the same things over and over again. Like, how could that happen? How did that happen? Why did that happen? Why is my son not speaking to me? Like, where did that go wrong? Like, how can I fix it mode, upset mode, denial mode. I mean, I went through all of it, but the thing is, I had this higher awareness that I was going through it, and I realized I had to go through it. I couldn't bypass it. I had to go through all of this human experience to process everything that happened to me because it was big. And even when it still had remnants forever, up until maybe 6 months ago. I mean, this was whew, 3 years it took me to get to where I am, 4 years. And I still have remnants. But when I was still ruminating about, the divorce and all the stuff that was going on, I would just kind of like put my hand on myself and say, you know what? Or I'd feel the waves of grief. Oh my God, I had such intense waves of grief of all the stuff that had now gone. And I would feel these waves and I'd be like, I'd hold my heart. I go, you know what? It's okay. And I'd breathe through it. And I'd say, you got this, or I'd say, this is okay, and feel it. So I would recommend people to feel it. And distraction is a beautiful thing. And even when I was distracting myself, I would have compassion and say, you know what? And I'd say to my guides, yeah, I know I'm distracting myself right now. I know I am not dealing with this right now, but I need a little vacay. So.
Oh, you've reminded me of, we were talking about the different parts of us and how we have those voices in our heads. In my work, we call them saboteurs. You're not pretty enough, you're not smart enough. And we want to send those little parts off on vacation. So I love that you said that. Go on vacay. Yes, I want to be distracted right now. I want to have a pity party, whatever it is. So it's all under this big umbrella of accepting yourself and having compassion for yourself and looking within for healing. I think that's what you're talking about. And strength. And know that you're not alone. That was, that's part of my story, is understanding that I could never be alone. That when we look outside ourselves for anything, whatever it is, ultimately it comes back to looking within and finding answers that we didn't even know that we had. And I'm going to get a little picky here around what you said about you've got this. That's one of my pet peeves.
I hate that I said it. So take that out.
No, but you said it the same way I would say it. People telling somebody, "Oh, you've got this."
Oh, it's the worst.
Hey, yes, it's rather dismissive.
Yeah.
And yes, we know we've got it, but it's usually said in a way that, to me, is not really connecting to what's really going on with the other person. I'm sure there's times when it's appropriate to say that you've got this. And I've gotten some pushback from other coaches like me who say, well, I say that. And maybe in context, there are contexts, I'm sure, where it's appropriate, but I'm with you. It's like, no, let's really listen and hear what the other person is going through so that we can be present with that.
Yes. Because that's also a judgment. Like, what is it? You got this. Who's judging what that means?
Yeah. Yes.
When? Where? What? Like,
Yes. What is it that I've got?
Yeah.
What is that thing that I've got anyway?
What am I gonna do to get it?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Right now I'm suffering. I'm suffering right now. So like, suffering, and that's the human condition. And again, we are here to suffer to learn. I think it's and without those, let's say, dynamic experiences that I had. And I always said life is fascinating, and those were some pretty fascinating experiences. Without those, you can't see the other side, which is the joy. So I think one of the gifts that I've been able to bottle up is this ability to, and I'm not Pollyanna here thinking I'm always going to be riding high on joy, but I really, really hope that I can sustain this level of joy or this level of vibration as long as I can. And I don't know, maybe it will continue forever, maybe it won't, but either way, I know what it feels like now. So, and when I wasn't feeling that vibration of joy, that I had the bliss because I lived, and then I had this period of, oh boy. And then I kept thinking to myself, but my intention was, I want to get back to the bliss, the joy. I want to get back to that because that was really fun. That was really good. So I kept thinking, I hope I can. I hope I can get back to that woman who lived, and life was just so multicolored. Life was just so amazing and beautiful and visceral, and everything was a gift. Everything, it was just all good. And the things that weren't just ding 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 ding, they didn't really penetrate the joy, the vibration I was in. So so in the last few months, when all of a sudden I realized, oh my gosh, I'm back there, because I knew what it felt like. So then I knew what I was coming home to, and what was possible. So I was happy. I was happy about that, going, oh boy, phew, finally I'm able to live at this level again, where it's all happening, but it's like you said, it's not sticking.
Not sticking.
Yeah.
Well, your face lights up when you talk about it.
Oh.
So I think it's very obvious. So I want to thank you, my dear Tara, for showing up and being uncensored, unprogrammed, and unfiltered.
Okay.
And on a very personal note, my heart goes out to you about your son. I'm a mom. I think any mother listening will understand that, how heartbreaking that must be. And if I were to pray for anything, it would be for that, for you.
Forgiveness.
Oh, there's a whole nother conversation to have. Yes. So yes, forgiveness is part of the journey.
Yeah.
So
Forgiveness of self.
yes, 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 yes. And I'm not a psychic, but well, what's the old marriage vows? Yes, the old marriage, what God has joined together, let no man put asunder. My spiritual path says, what God has joined together, no man can put asunder. So your connection to your son is there.
Yeah.
No matter what the external picture looks like.
That made me cry.
I apologize. I didn't know
That's
we were
okay.
We can edit this out if you like.
No.
But you are unfiltered.
For real. I'm the unfiltered. I mean, there's many people out there who are going to watch this, and they're going to say, you know what? I have a perceived loss.
Yes.
In my life, because I do believe I'm connected with him.
Yes.
And there's no way to not be. He's my son. So I am hopeful, but I'm also not going to suspend my joy.
No.
Waiting. And that's the thing. We have to learn how to be in the moment and be joyful and give ourselves permission to be joyful. Because that was another big thing. I thought all of these things happened, which not that it made me a bad person, but maybe an undeserving person of joy. But that's where, when you accept it all, and then you can realize, no, it's not really who I am. It's part of this experience, and I can be joyful despite all of these things that happen to me. But the key is they're happening for you. Right? That's what we have to remember. They're not happening to me. I'm not a victim.
And as you said earlier, it's when we sign up to come into the world, we sign up maybe for cancer and this kind of thing because it's part of the belief system of coming into the world. So again, thank you.
My pleasure. It was wonderful to be here with you.
Well, I appreciate that you shared so openly with all of us. Thank you, Tara.